Hi, Kim here. Make sure you have your New York State reference table today, as always, particularly the periodic table. It's always a nice thing to have on hand, and something to take notes on, and something to take notes with. Today we're going to be talking about gram to mole and mole to gram conversions. Our learning goals for this video are to use the molar mass and given information of a problem to estimate the solution to a mass to mole or mole to mass conversion before calculating the answer. We're going to be doing some estimating today, some numerical reasoning. Our second learning goal is to calculate the amount of a substance in moles given the mass of that substance in grams. So this is a mass to moles conversion. And then to do the opposite, to calculate the mass of a substance in grams given the amount of a substance in moles. So a mole to mass conversion. Let's get to it. We're going to start with a question where the molar mass is being given to us. So we don't have to use the periodic table to determine the molar mass of this particular substance. We're being told the molar mass of a substance is 55.6 grams for every 1 mole, or G/mole. The questions are asking us how many grams are in 2.89 moles, and how many moles are in 205 grams. So I can answer both of these questions without even using a calculator. I can't get to the actual answer, but I can get to an estimate. And so that's what I'm going to start off with. Because I already know the molar mass, I don't need to spend any time looking up the molar mass of my substance. I'm going to start by estimating how many grams would be in 2.89 moles and how many moles would be in 205 grams. And I'm going to do this estimation by using some mathematical reasoning. Then my second step to solving this problem will be to actually calculate using a conversion factor my moles to grams and my grams to moles. You might wonder why we have to estimate first, because it can seem like a lot of work, but I promise you, you are way less likely to make a mistake in your calculation if you have thought through what you expect your answer to be. And then our final answer will be to think about our calculated answer compared to our estimation, checking our work to make sure it makes sense. Let's start with our estimation. So if we have 2.89 moles, how many grams would that be if this substance has a molar mass of 55.6 grams per mole? So I'm thinking about 2.89 moles, and I want to convert that to grams. I'm going to sort of approximate that to be about 3 moles. 2.89 is pretty close to 3. If I'm just estimating, 3 is a much easier number to work with than 2.9 for mental math. So I've got about 3 moles of this substance, and my substance has a molar mass of 55.6 grams for every 1 mole. So I can work from there, and I can say, okay, if there are 55 grams in 1 mole of this substance, I can just double that. There's 110 grams in 2 moles of this substance, which means there would be 165 grams, right? 110 plus 55 in 3 moles. So I can estimate that there should be about 165 grams in 2.89 moles of this substance. That's not going to be exactly my answer. This is just an estimation, right? I've made the numbers easy for myself. For number 2, let's go the other way, from grams to moles. So I know that I have 205 grams of this substance, and so how many moles would that be? I'm going to use sort of the same basic reasoning that I used for my first estimation. I'm going to say, 205 is a bigger number than 55.6. There's 55.6 grams in 1 mole. So I must have more than 1 mole, because 205 grams is more than 55.6 grams, and 55.6 grams would be 1 mole. But about how many moles do I have? And so I'm going to go back to my sort of quick reasoning of there should be 55 grams in 1 mole, 110 grams in 2 moles, 165 grams in 3 moles, and plus 55 is 220 grams in 4 moles. Just adding 55 each time, right, which is my approximate molar mass. And so I should have, if I have 205 grams in my sample, between 3 and 4 moles, because 205 is between 165 grams and 220 grams. So I should have somewhere between 3 and 4 moles as my answer to number 2 here. These were quick estimations. I talked through them a lot to let you all see how I reasoned them out, but they are super helpful when I actually go to do my calculation, because they'll help me make sure that I am not making any silly mistakes and multiplying when I should have been dividing. So we've made our estimations. Our second step was to actually calculate our answers. So we are going to use what's called dimensional analysis, or using molar mass as a conversion factor to do the math to convert 2.89 moles to grams and 205 grams to moles. So when I say dimensional analysis, I mean using units to guide me as I solve the problem. So I'm going to put my estimations right on the paper for myself so that I remember them. I'm estimating that I will get about 165 grams for my first answer and about between 3 and 4 moles for my second. To set up my calculation, I'm going to start with my given information, so that will be either in grams or moles. For number 1, since I'm going from 2.9 moles to grams, my starting given information is going to be 2.9 moles. So I'm going to put 2.9 moles on the starting line for number 1. Then, where it says molar mass, written with the given unit in the denominator, this is the part of the problem that people have the most trouble with. There are 2 ways that I can write a molar mass. I can write it as 55.6 grams over 1 mole, or I can write it as 1 mole over 55.6 grams. Now, these 2 values are not numerically equivalent. 55.6 divided by 1 is not the same as 1 divided by 55.6. But when I'm thinking about using molar mass as a conversion factor, I can use either conversion factor to help me to solve my problem. I want to pick the conversion factor that has the unit that I'm starting with in this problem, so in this case, moles, in the denominator, and has the unit that I want to end up with, in this case, grams, in the numerator. So I'm going to write 55.1 grams over 1 mole. That's telling me the ratio of grams to moles in my molar mass. And because I am now going to multiply 2.89 moles times 55.6 grams per mole, the unit moles reduce to 1. Because just like when I have x over x, I know that something divided by itself reduces to 1, and I cross off my x's. If I have the same unit over the same unit, I don't do anything to the numbers, right? But I can say those units cancel or reduce to 1. So in my calculator, to solve this problem, I'm going to type in 2.89 times parentheses 55.6 divided by 1 and round my answer to 3 significant figures. 55.6 divided by 1 will just be 55.6, but I like to get into the good habit of putting parentheses in my calculator that match the way the parentheses are written on my problem. So I get 161 grams as my answer when I round it to 3 significant figures. And if I compare that to my estimation, those numbers are pretty close together. I feel pretty good about that. So let's go ahead and do our second calculation. Again, I'm going to start with the given information on the starting line, so 205 grams, and I'm going to put a version of molar mass being multiplied as a conversion factor. Which conversion factor I choose is going to depend on where my given unit is in the denominator. So in this case, since my given unit is grams, I am starting with 205 grams and I want to convert grams into moles. I would like to pick the version of the conversion factor that has grams in the denominator. So I'm going to pick 1 mole over 55.6 grams. Notice I can't just decide that I'm going to put the 1 with the grams and the 55.6 with the moles, right? That ratio, it's always 55.6 grams for every 1 mole, right? So the numbers have to stay with their assigned units. Similarly to the first problem, I'm going to carefully calculate based on my setup here. So 205 times parentheses 1 divided by 55.6, rounding my answer to 3 significant figures, and I get 3.67 moles. Checking my estimates, both of them totally match up with what my actual answers were. Check out part 2 of this video for a second example problem that goes exactly like this one, using a different problem. If you feel confident now about these learning goals, then great. However, if you'd like to see one more practice problem, check out the second video that's a component of this lesson, where I'm going to go over a second example of doing gram to mole and mole to gram conversions and estimating beforehand. Thanks for doing some chemistry with me.